an epic war movie in a single 28-minute episode of animated Star Wars. I gotta say, these latest Bad Batch episodes are more than holding their own against The Mandalorian. In fact, I'm actually enjoying The Bad Batch more. And this one, what a superb episode. Continuing the show's great music, we have the mood set perfectly as the score brings a contemplative, isolating atmosphere to the opening scene. We pick up with the Imperial military base on Coruscant, and with Crosshair. Standing outside near a ship, he is awaiting his next mission to start as troopers buzz around the sun-bleached airstrip. In the background, Crosshair overhears decommissioned clones trying to get help from an uninterested and unhelpful officer. Things really must be moving quicker and quicker to phase out the clone troopers now that the Empire's stormtrooper legislation has newly passed. Crosshair is greeted by his new commander for the mission, Lieutenant Nolan. Right off the bat, Nolan insults Crosshair by lightly scolding him for having his helmet removed. Nolan, well, he seems like an absolutely insufferable human being. But just wait, he gets worse, because he then notices that other clones are also a part of the mission, and he dismisses them as, and I quote, used equipment. Nolan really views the clones as outdated military assets, not people. To him, a clone is no different than the blasters or the armor the Empire is using. Similar to a chair in his office, they are just tools, pieces of furniture. It's a really insidious way of viewing other living creatures, but it makes sense that there would be people like Nolan within the context of the Empire and its messaging at this time. So what's their mission? Well, they have to reinforce an Imperial armory on Barton 4. Apparently, the cargo being stored there is being stolen by local rebels. More music plays as they travel to the planet. Crosshair seems as cool as a cucumber, like this is just mission 1,000,001. In contrast, Nolan seems pretty on edge. I think this is to clue in the audience that while Nolan is the mission commander, he lacks experience and, at least at some base level, is insecure. They land on a cool new ice planet. The snow is blowing, the wind is howling. It immediately feels remote and has the polar opposite vibe from the military installation on Coruscant they just left. The episode is called The Outpost, and it fits. They really are essentially out in the harsh wilderness, away from civilization, fending for themselves. Nobody from the armory greets them upon landing, and they soon find out it's because most of the base's men are dead. Of the clone troopers stationed there, only 3 are left. They find Clone Commander Mayday, who drops any introductions, any pleasantries, but instead does joke that Nolan and his team must have gotten lost because reinforcements were expected a while ago. It's not just the episode's name that fits. Mayday's character name also fits because of the desperate situation the outpost he commands now finds itself in. His wrapped armor looks like an attempt to stay warm, or maybe just a way to keep pieces from falling apart. Either way, it invokes imagery of bandages, which also in turn reflects the horrible conditions they're facing. Mayday is a good character. He's jaded from being left alone on the planet and watching his men slowly die around him, but despite that, he hasn't lost his humanity or his sense of humor. Nolan starts off by berating Mayday for the sorry shape the base is in, and assumes command. Nolan's insults don't really visibly rile up Mayday, but at this point, after what he's been through, it's hard to imagine what words ever could. Because Nolan is a jerk and is so clearly dismissing the reality of the situation, Mayday does openly mock him, but agrees to go along with Nolan's orders. He's a good soldier, and good soldiers follow orders. Mayday has a good line where he says,
"In my experience, respect is something to be earned."
Which is a callback to,
"In my book, experience outranks everything."
Later, Crosshair and Mayday find themselves alone, where Mayday does his best to cut through Crosshair's rough exterior and try to get to know him. The two get some bonding time, and Mayday is pretty darn charismatic, and I feel confident saying that because he's actually able to chat up someone as aloof and standoffish as Crosshair. He starts to give Crosshair a tour of the base, and one of the first things he shows Crosshair are the base's malfunctioning sensors. They're having trouble even detecting incoming threats now because of deferred maintenance. Perfect. Just the kind of thing you want to be waiting on before fixing. But their tour is interrupted by an enemy raid. The raiders steal some of the cargo, and a tense sequence leads up to Crosshair wounding one of the raiders before they escape into the snow. Even though Crosshair loses a visual contact with them, Crosshair is able to track their blood trail. I know, pretty dark, but he follows it into a nearby cave system, and rather than deciding to pursue the retreating raiders, Crosshair regroups back at the base. We learn that Mayday is now the only surviving trooper from the original team stationed at the outpost, and Mayday's grieving is interrupted by Nolan, who demands that specifically Crosshair and Mayday go out and pursue the raiders to retrieve the cargo that was just stolen. Mayday argues that they'll need more men, but Nolan doesn't care, and Mayday is not about to disobey orders. So he and Crosshair set off into the icy wilderness. They pick the blood trail back up at the cave system, which leads to the hunched over corpse of the raider that Crosshair wounded. He bled out trying to get away. Boy, the lad sure did not get a happy ending. Mayday and Crosshair have a clash of ideas here, where Mayday comments on how unsettling it is that the other raiders didn't even care enough to recover the body, while Crosshair, on the other hand, well, he thinks it was the practical decision to not come back for the body during a retreat. I got the sense that Crosshair didn't really give that much thought, like he just kind of blurted it out as first reaction. Mayday cracks a joke in response. Remind me not to die on your watch. Continuing to navigate the cave system, Crosshair triggers a pressure mine in the ground. And without stopping to think, Mayday defuses not only the bomb, but the situation by keeping Crosshair talking and cracking jokes to put themselves at ease. While working to disarm the mine, Mayday asks Crosshair what unit he was with during the Clone Wars. Crosshair seems reluctant to respond at first, maybe fearing that Mayday wouldn't like to hear that Crosshair was part of the Bad Batch Mutant Special Forces clone team, or maybe just because Crosshair doesn't like opening up to people. But all that said, based on Mayday's response, I don't think he even knew what Clone Force 99 was to have an opinion of it, but even if he did, he was only ever going to offer camaraderie and understanding, something that Crosshair has been missing since he left the Bad Batch. I really enjoyed the next exchange the two have. Mayday finishes working on defusing the mine, but tells Crosshair to wait for him to get behind cover before telling Crosshair to step off the mine. Crosshair sarcastically says he's glad Mayday is so confident in his work to feel the need to step behind cover. Mayday has the fantastic comeback of, "Oh, I'm confident, I'm just not stupid." Safe from the mine, the two continue through the cave system and eventually arrive at the raiders' camp. Outnumbered, they engage in a firefight and are eventually able to win by blasting ammo being stored at the camp. The resulting explosion gets the raiders, and in recovering the cargo, Crosshair and Mayday learn a shocking truth. Here's the twist of the episode. The cargo that they've been guarding, and were now asked to recover, is actually unused stormtrooper gear. Mayday has a bit of an existential crisis, lamenting over how unfair it is to fight for the Republic and now the Empire with increasingly few resources in increasingly desperate circumstances, while guarding equipment for none other than their replacements. Let alone the fact that they are guarding equipment they themselves could be using. But before there's really time to process it, the earlier explosion triggers an avalanche. The two begin to run, and Mayday pushes Crosshair away from a rock, but in doing so, he is thrown against the rock instead. In that instant, the avalanche catches up to them, and they are buried. Freezing and exhausted, Crosshair is able to climb out of the snow. He goes over to uncover Mayday, who is in even much worse shape, having been slammed against that rock. Calling back to their earlier conversation about when to leave somebody behind, this time Mayday flips the script and tells Crosshair to leave him. Crosshair, of course, refuses and helps carry him through the excruciatingly long and brutal journey back to the Imperial outpost. As they get closer to the base, cargo ships whiz overhead, ignoring the two of them on the ground. I thought this was a great contrast. Here they are, roughing it out in the midst of a hostile terrain, barely alive, while other members of their own organization, just with better equipment, soar overhead, unconcerned with distances, weather, and geography. The two can only collapse once they make it back to base. And you'll notice that the base is fully staffed now and fully reinforced by stormtroopers. almost like they, or Nolan, were just waiting for the last of the clones to be gone before actually caring to invest in the Outpost or ask for more men. Crosshair begs Nolan to help Mayday, to get him a medic, but Nolan refuses because they didn't recover the cargo. As Crosshair and Nolan go back and forth, Mayday dies. Crosshair is disgusted on how things have unfolded, but Nolan tells him that all clones are expendable, to forget about Mayday, and to get back to work as soon as possible. Okay, I do think this starts to border the line a little on cartoonishly evil for Nolan, but I guess if he really views the clones as pieces of equipment, then it's believable. Crosshair sees the ice vultures circling overhead Mayday's body, which have been a reoccurring point in the episode. The vultures, I think, represent a number of things. First, I think they represent the Empire, circling over Crosshair, just waiting for him to drop dead too once he's no longer useful. His fate is essentially doomed. Second, I think it just represents the situation. Crosshair has lost, and now his friend's body is literally about to be picked apart by nature and scavengers. It's a horrific reality he's encountering. And third, at the start of the episode, Mayday first points the ice vultures out to Crosshair, saying, "You have to respect it. It found a way to survive." Crosshair is now seeing that the bird is still alive, but Mayday is dead. Up until now, Mayday had also found a way to survive, but now things are different. So what's a man at rock bottom supposed to do? Well, if you said murder Lieutenant Nolan, then you'd be correct, because Crosshair drops the man before surrendering to the stormtroopers that come rushing over. The scene fades, and Crosshair then wakes up at what appears to be Mount Tantus, where scientists are seemingly experimenting on him. It looks like the season might be setting up multiple plot points to converge at Mount Tantus for some kind of finale. But I don't know, I could be wrong about that. So I don't really know what else to say at this point. The episode was really good. Crosshair finally realizes that the Empire cannot be trusted, and it wasn't being forced to commit atrocities against enemies or innocent civilians that got him to this point. No, it was the Empire's betrayal of other people he was serving with. I was really impressed that they were able to introduce a new character in Mayday and have him die, all in a less than 28-minute episode, and make me care. I was also impressed that the story was so good, despite actually knowing nothing about the enemy raiders they were fighting. In that regard, it kind of reminded me of Top Gun Maverick. Who are our heroes fighting? Well, it doesn't really matter, because the story we are telling may be a war story, but the characters and their struggles are at the most front and center. And in this situation, if I had to guess, I would assume those raiders are probably just desperate locals fighting back against the oppression of the Empire's presence on their planet. I guess if I had a criticism, it would be that Nolan should have been toned down just a touch. Sometimes he was a little too outrageous, and it took me a bit out of the episode. But overall, this episode was just so atmospheric, mature, cinematic, and I hope the next episode isn't another treasure hunt or something, but hey, it probably will be. We're overdue at this point. But what did you think of this episode? Comment below, and if you made it this far, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It means a lot. And with that, I will just ask you to take it easy and have a great rest of your day.